Well, hello again. This is Jeffrey Cranford with Lynx Players International, and I'm here again with the Hermanator. Well, we're continuing our series on these metaphors that we find all the way throughout Scripture, and I love it. I love the simplicity. I mean, imagine Jesus, who created everything. I mean, he could talk shop and with the greatest physicists of all time, and of course, he could talk way above their head. He created all this,
Right.
and yet he simplifies it, makes simple metaphors for us to understand. For knuckleheads like me, that I can remember, that are memorable, and I can think about. So today we're going to talk about sand. Now, some of you, especially as a golf analogy, sand, man, you'll do anything to avoid sand. You'll chip around a bunker before you'll try to hit a lob shot over it to a pin. I mean, because sometimes like, man, when I get in the sand, I don't know if I'm skull it out of the bunker, what I'm going to do. Well, there's two analogies we want to see from Scripture. First of all, let's just think about the kingdom in general in terms of a sand analogy or dirt analogy or dust analogy. God comes down in Genesis 12 and promises Abraham, look, I am going to make your descendants, they are going to be like the stars of heaven. He uses this beautiful analogy. Now you realize this is not only an improbability, it seems like an impossibility that Abraham and Sarai are going to be able to have any kids, and they went through a long process. But then in Genesis 13, he draws another metaphor. He says, your descendants are going to be like the dust of the earth. I mean, they're going to fill the population. And, you know, when we think about that, and you think about here's a big rock, and then sand comes from essentially a rock. You were telling me a little bit earlier, you're talking about, look, sand is really just rocks that have disintegrated in some way.
Absolutely, it's erosion. It's one large or several large things that over many years of time, through wind, through rain, through water, disintegrates that particular piece of geology into something very fine. But it multiplies, it creates more, which I think is a tie-in to what this metaphor is about.
So the ultimate rock it's Jesus.
Right.
I mean, and we get that through Scripture too. Paul says it in Corinthians chapter 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 10. He says, and the rock that followed them in the wilderness was Christ. I mean, they drank from the water poured forth from the rock. But now Jesus is saying, the things I've done, you're going to do these things and greater things still. So he's wanting, in a sense, he's like, what is the old saying, chip off the old block or whatever.
That's great, yeah.
He wants us to be, in a sense, the ministry of Jesus through our body when we give it to him. So we're the sand, he's the rock, but we go out and we do rock functions.
Yeah.
We participate in that. But the second one is, and it's kind of, people are terrified of bunkers, especially now this one. This is easy, man. This is easy to get. You could almost putt out of this bunker.
Yeah.
But there's some of those bunkers you see during the British Open. Even the pros get in there and they have to go backwards. They're these deep. They call them, have some very ingenious names for these places. These deep bunkers with steep faces. Even without that, you're like, I can't get out of the bunker, man. One I scull it, one I dig it in there. I have no idea. And yet, a lot of the guys on the tour, you'll see, they'll go, man, I was aiming for that bunker because I knew I could get it up and down from that bunker. Depending on the quality of the sand that week, I know I can get it up and down from that bunker rather than taking a chance on being in rough like this. It's thick. I can barely see my ball. Once you're experienced. So does it take experience to really be able to handle accurately the word of truth?
Of course. Yeah.
And then you can shoot for difficult situations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, the bunkers are definitely things that God may put in your way for a purpose too. And if you're prepared with the Word, you have a way to look at them holistically and what's going on. But it's with your other friends who've been discipling along the way, like we've talked about. The rock was Jesus, but he had to create smaller pieces of sand to spread out everywhere.
That's exactly right. And I'm telling you, there's a place in your life to be discipled. Remember this process. I come to Christ, then I begin to learn the Word. I'm discipled, and we're praying that that's what your Links group will do. One of the reasons you're there is to learn the Word, to have full access to His knowledge so that, as it says in Colossians 1, you can walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. So you can't run out and do this. So when you know how to get out of a bunker, you might even aim for a bunker. It's the same way in the kingdom. I would never want to go into Saudi Arabia and share the gospel, or I wouldn't even want to go into my club. There's people, they don't like that stuff, man. They don't want to talk about religion or politics or anything. No, we don't cross those lines. No, that's a dangerous place to go. But if you know how to handle accurately the word of truth, you'll aim for that bunker. You'll aim for what some people would say, well, that's very penal in there. You say, no, I can actually hold out from that bunker. Mm-hmm. So, but you've got to be able to handle accurately the word. Yeah. So, sand, again, many metaphors, many applications. And we'll get into the next one next week. Thanks, Chris.
All right, no problem.